Maybe don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build. 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 This time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 103 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. We are over the century mark, which is exciting, and it really doesn't seem like this thing has been around all that long, and frankly, I guess it hasn't, but thanks so much for the support that we've gotten so far. I feel like we're crushing this thing. I am right now in lovely Lander, Wyoming, where things are starting to calm down after a quite hectic summer. And I'm in my final 3 weeks of preparation for a trip back to Red River Gorge, which used to be home, where I'm taking aim at some big for me projects and then moving on to some even bigger bouldering goals. Frankly, in part inspired by this conversation that you're about to listen to. I'm going to tell you more about all of that later. For now, I kind of want to jump into this conversation because it's a fairly lengthy one with some special and surprise guests. The main guest today is Drew Mack, here for a return conversation. Drew was on episode 16, Always Psyched, way back, and has been steadily improving in several ways since that conversation. And Drew doesn't take much for granted. He reaches out for help from his peers, his mentors, which is a skill that's going to continue to help him for many years, and honestly is a skill that I envy a little bit. I'm more the I'm just going to do it myself type, and I really think that I want to get better at reaching out for assistance when it's needed. And Drew's very good at that. We sat down at my house here in Lander, along with Nate and with our good friend John Wesely. So let's do it.
Maybe don't know.
This time.
And they don't even have to be the dopest routes, but different that are going to teach me something. Each one on that list is going to teach me something different. I guarantee it.
This time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build.
Yeah. I lie on everything about my age to make me sound cooler.
I used to lie about my age too. Now I just like being 40-something.
40-something?
Yeah, I fucking can't do math, Drew, and I don't remember what year I was born most of the time, so I don't know exactly how old I am. I have to do reverse math every time. Do they call that subtraction? I don't know.
Something like
reverse math. Yes.
Reverse math. So last time you were here, we were just talking about being stoked.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start this off with a little bit of a wild card question. You just told me the other day that you were in rifle and you had your first case of I'm over it, I'm done, I'm ready to move on.
Yeah.
But then yesterday you posted on the Instagram story that you miss rifle. So
yeah.
So what's up with that? What's going on?
Yeah. So
all the emotions and
all the emotions.
Drew
I'm
Mack's
just
body.
an emotional, feely kind of guy. Yeah. So I think I was really focused in rifle it was my first time there. I was really excited to be there, and so I kind of just bum rushed it.
Did you say that was your first time there?
I climbed there for a day 5 years ago.
Okay.
So my first trip there.
Okay. So you're trying to lie 2 minutes into the podcast is what you're saying.
Yeah, thanks for calling me out. Chris Hampton always keeping me humble. Or factual.
So you're in rifle.
Yeah, so I'm in rifle, and I really I was really psyched and hustled for a while, and towards the end of the trip, I was like tired. I was like really tired, and kind of felt like I lost a bit of the. To be honest, I did a lot of the routes I wanted to do, and everything. I just kind of felt like I slowed down a bit and was ready to kind of take a break. Mm-hmm. And I took like 2 days off in the middle, but other than that, like just kind of hustling. And so I think like the combination of like how focused Rifle is, like you really are in like a grind of like day in and day out rock climbing. And Nick can kind of attest to this too, is like the climbing is like difficult. Like it's really, you pull on and you're like trying, and mentally it's like really focused. Your foot can slip, you can whatever. Like when I pulled onto a lot of the routes, like it was game on. There's no like stopping and checking out kind of thing, especially with a route like Living in Fear, where like there's not even really spots to chalk up.
Right. And it's kind of all there is in the canyon. Like you're just in there rock climbing.
Yeah,
you take
you
a
might
rest
get,
day,
like,
you watch rock climbing.
Your rests are like sideways knee bars where your knee kind of hurts. Like you're shaking out your arms, but like you're very focused. Mm-hmm. And so I think physically and mentally I felt tired towards like kind of the end of the trip. And really honestly, I should have just taken a couple of days off. But I would take a day off and then go back and climb more, and that kind of just builds up towards burning out, I guess.
Have you had other trips that were kind of open-ended where you didn't have this tight timeline to get shit done?
Yeah, I feel like I've had both, where I have like a tight timeline, and by tight time, like not, I had like 6 weeks or something, so it's like not super tight, but like I have a lot of time. I'm
just wondering if your burnout was partially caused by the fact that you could kind of go anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm like super motivated by like right now in my climbing, like I'm able to travel a lot. And so I was in one spot for a while and I was kind of ready to switch it up. And, I really like doing different things, like with my climbing and seeing new places. And like I get tired of the same thing after a little bit, I guess.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So we've got several other people here in the room. Nate is obviously with us, and John Wesely, aka Johnny Lightning, aka Lightning Snaps, is in the building as well. And you were like, we just established before we started recording that you were like day 6 homie. You weren't quite day 1 homie.
Yeah,
right?
I wasn't there on day 1. Drew and I started climbing together like 5 years ago. And when we started climbing together, we had both climbed a max grade of 13A. And now Drew climbs much harder than that, and I climb not much harder than that. So that's been interesting. It's been kind of getting in the way of my ego a little bit.
We can't let things get in the way of our egos. But has Drew, in your opinion, kind of always been like that? Just hustle all the time to
Drew's
get
work
shit
ethic
done?
is insane. Like, Drew is where he is because he works harder than everybody else, for sure. Like, he doesn't give up.
Which is bigger, his work ethic or his Drew Mack psych?
It's his work ethic. I've seen the truth of the Drew Mack psych. It's not always like quite as psyched as it might appear from the outside, but the work ethic
Which is
never.
What we're getting at, yeah.
Outside being the gram.
The work ethic never goes away, but the psych's more variable than you might think.
Yeah, I think it's easy to like always look psyched on social media too. Like you kind of said that, Nate. And like, there's definitely, I go on a big trip, man, and I'm like, I love rock climbing, but sometimes I'm just like mentally and physically a little tired, and I'm like, all right, cool. Like I'm gonna slow down. It doesn't mean that I don't want to like go rock climbing. It's more just like I don't want to try a really hard rock climb right now.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I think our perception of how people see us on social media is a little different too. Like if you didn't post how stoked you were for a couple of days, no one would really notice. They wouldn't think that you had like started hating rock climbing and you
totally
just
not.
quit.
Yeah.
But that's how it feels sometimes. Like
100%.
if I don't post, what are people going to think I'm doing?
Yeah. Yeah. But in the inverse of that, like, I'm not going to post how psyched I am if I'm not psyched, Like,
also, the psych predates social media. Like Drew Mack was known for a psych way before
back
the
in
gram.
the flip phone days.
Way before the gram, he was known for his psych.
It's true. There were T-shirts made about the Drew Mack Psych.
Yeah, we've talked about that
way back when. So you said something when we were first talking, when I first hit the record button, and we were talking about rifle, that you had done most of the routes you wanted to do, and that kind of, led to your demotivation for the moment, which seemed to have lasted 2 days. And part of those routes that you wanted to do come from this list that you told me about earlier this week or last week or whatever that is. I don't know. Days run together around here. And it's a list that JStar gave you.
Yeah, Jonathan Segrist.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about how the list came about.
So I've known Jonathan for a bit. We met through, mutual friends climbing, and he's like one of my climbing heroes. I grew up watching his videos, and when he first came to the Red, it was, the most impressive thing I had seen. His like tick list was nuts, and then other videos and all that. So I was like psyched to meet him, and we got to climb together a lot. And over time, he's kind of become like, a mentor in rock climbing and getting better, but also like kind of the professional side as well. And so a lot of times I'll ask him like, what's the best thing for me as a rock climber right now? And it's funny, I was planning my next trips, and he kind of was like, don't do this. This is what you should do. And he ended up like very quickly writing out this list of like 11 or 12 routes throughout the United States that he thought were important for my growth as a rock climber. And it was
the thing he told you not to do was to do another trip to Spain.
Yeah, right? Which I did. Sorry, Jonathan. No, it was just like more of a bang for your buck kind of thing, I mean, I think it's just really easy to go to it's like I grew up wanting to go to Spain.
Right.
And like there's routes I wanted to do there. I didn't really have a good trip on my first time there. I was hurt, so I really wanted to go, and I had the chance to go, so I went. Which I don't think there's anything wrong with, but I do think his list is important for my growth, and I don't want to skip over that going to do these like in vogue routes.
Sure. What do you think it is that's so important about this list for your climbing?
I think they're like, they're throughout, it's like all on the West Coast for one, which I think he meant because I haven't really...
Just for the record, rifle is not on the West Coast.
I mean, it's Colorado.
West Coast Rado, born and raised.
We're going to say west of the Mississippi.
Okay. In the western half of the United States. Because Utah is also not West Coast.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Fair. Is Lander?
Lander's not West Coast.
Okay.
In fact, I don't think any of these are on the West Coast.
Okay. Middle of the country kind of thing. Wherever.
JStar, you needed to write instructions to this list when you gave it to Drew. He thought he was going to California.
He's going to drive all the way to the coast. He thought it was a beach vacation. Instead, he's climbing in these smelly caves.
We ain't going to LA. Yeah, they're all, I mean, for me, they're all like places I had never been before also. Like, so they're these areas that like, they're not even the hardest routes in the areas. They're like, and they're not even the hardest grades that I've done. They're just routes that probably I might have skipped over trying to either do harder routes. Like going to rifle, there's like 3 routes in rifle on that list. And like, had I gone and just tried to do, at the beginning of the trip, I tried Fat Camp and I wanted to try Bad Girls Club. And like, those are the hard routes of the canyon. But had I just tried those the whole time, I may have skipped over some of the 13Ds and 14As. And I think he knew that like this, like those like mid-range moderates, which that like it feels really weird to say that about like 13D, 14A. Like really weird, but
yeah. So as Johnny is the only guy who hasn't climbed 514 at this table, how does that make you feel?
Sorry, John. I didn't mean it like that.
These mid-range moderates.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're not moderates by any means.
Maybe one day I'll be able to get up those mid-range moderates if I I apply myself. And
maybe one day you'll get to the upper range moderates too.
maybe one day the shoes will get good enough that it'll be a little bit easier too.
You were saying mid-range moderate. Sorry, I interrupted.
Sorry, you got
No.
tanked there when you were all on your feelings.
You just got spanked out of your bubble.
Whoops, my bad. But yeah, it was just like, I think those routes they're also routes that I like may have skipped over because I don't want to really go
Work
climb
that hard for the grade.
Yeah, or climb Vert and Smith.
Yeah.
But having a list like actually, makes it easier for me to be like, I'm going to go and learn how to stand on my toes and like be a better rock climber, and climb different routes. They don't even have to be the dopest routes, but like different that are going to teach me something. Each one on that list is going to teach me something different. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and I don't know any of these routes personally because they're too mid-range moderate for me. But my guess is that JStar approached it from a point of view of what's going to teach Drew the most.
Yeah.
About climbing. What can he learn from? And I've always thought about coaching athletes the same way that a boxing trainer does, where they pick out opponents for their boxer, looking to help prepare them for the championship.
Yeah.
Rather than let's just fight whoever, or let's fight the popular guy right now.
Yep.
Let's go out and fight the people who are going to make you better.
Yeah.
Do you need to get better at fighting southpaws? We're going to put you in front of a couple of good southpaws, you know, and so on and so on. And my guess is, looking at the variety of this list, that's what JStar was thinking. And I don't know if there's anyone else in America, you would know better, Nate, who has a more complete resume than JStar.
As a sport climber, I'd say probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely, dug in all the crevices when it comes to sport climbing in North America. And I got to say, after looking at this...
In the world, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I guess, America, definitely world as well, obviously.
Without doubt.
But, I mean, I've mentioned this on another podcast, that you can put into Google the name of almost any 514, let's say type in the bleeding 14B, and one of the first 5 things that'll come up with any 514 pretty much in America will be a blog post from Jonathan Seagrist about it.
Yeah.
Totally.
He's done so much.
JStarInOrbit.com.
Yes.
Grew up on that.
And it's funny looking over this list. It seems like Jonathan's actually your friend. He wasn't trying to be really mean. He could have done some terrible things with this list. I was when you were reading it off initially, I was like, okay. I was like, it sounds like he's almost taking it easy on you. And then I was like, oh wait, no, he actually likes you. So it's the things at Smith, those are actually fairly overhanging for Smith.
Oh, word.
He could have easily been okay, you're going to go do to bolt or not to be.
Yeah.
Then you're going to go up and do sarcasm. He could have picked the most heinous stuff.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure he still wants me to go do those.
Oh, I'm sure. But this is actually
But he
it's
knows
cool.
you're going to Spain over and over again.
Yeah.
So.
But this seems like a really well thought out list. It's cool.
Yeah, it's personal, which I really appreciate. Took the time to write out something.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about the list. How many of these areas have you been to? 2 of them now?
I think just rifle
And Wild Iris.
and wild iris. Correct.
Did you you did climb on the rodeo wave the other
But
day,
I
didn't you?
didn't really do much.
Yeah, it was a bit of a post-party
Watch what you say here.
day.
please.
We'll just say it that way. Drew might have been up late. He was just tired. That's all.
I was tired.
But I'll just run down the list really quick for people. If you guys are interested, I'll also post it up on the blog post, assuming that JStar gives us his blessing to post this, which I'm sure he will.
Okay, Chris here. Just a quick break in the action here. I've got a special guest that I want to bring in at this point before we go any further.
Hello.
Yo, what's happening?
Yo. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm great.
So I had to reach out to JStar. I mean, this is his list, and I really wanted to know what was going through his mind, why he chose these routes, and what they meant to him.
And he hadn't looked at the list in quite a while. He didn't remember what routes were on it. So the audio, listening to him remember as I read through the list, is pretty priceless.
It's cool that Drew came on, and he has such a good heart, and
he's such a
I
good
think
dude.
that and he's just and he's in this stage where, and he in a lot of ways he reminds me of myself, both currently but certainly like 10 years ago, or something like that. And in that effect, it's fun to interact with him because I remember like just his like level, he's just so, his excitement for climbing and his psych for all these new things is so pure. And it's just kind of a fun energy to be around, you know? So yeah, I'm psyched that he came in and had a chance to chat with you guys, and then that he brought up the list. That's so cool. I'm like, part of me is like interested just to hear what the list is again.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even remember.
Yeah, I'm sure you had reasons for all these, and I'm interested. I think it's actually perfect that you don't remember all of these. Because I'm curious what you will think of them when you hear them again. I'll just go down the list real quick.
Yeah, okay.
It's Golden,
Okay.
F-Dude,
Yep.
Closing Down, Scarface, White Wedding,
Okay.
Dead Souls,
Yep.
Zulu, which he did
Yep.
recently,
sick.
Living in Fear and Living the Dream, which he also did both.
Okay.
Rodeo Free, Third Millennium,
Yep.
and The Bleeding.
Yeah.
So
God, that's such a good list.
yeah, that's what I said. Nate and I were both there when Drew told us about it, and we were both like, "Oh shit, this is a good list."
Yeah.
You know, and I've always admired your respect of the history, so I know there's some of that in this list, but I know it's
definitely.
about more than just that. So, like, what was the purpose of this list of routes?
Well, so the main purpose is because, and I won't get too deep into this because
Sure.
it's probably not, we don't have enough time, but, you know, it's something that I've been thinking about and talking about a lot recently. I actually just wrote a piece, or helped write a piece with Andrew Bisharat, kind of somewhat to the same tune, but not exactly. And the idea is that, you know, when you and I and many of our peers started climbing, it was pretty difficult to like skip these certain phases in your development as a climber.
Right.
And a lot of those phases included quite a bit of humbling, like, you know, exploration, kind of fear, and like overcoming all these things outdoors and with your friends and stuff that, you know, a lot of times now you can get strong enough and have enough kind of experience in the gym that, you know, you'll still come face to face with these things eventually. But basically I had expressed to Drew that, you know, so Drew, for the most part, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the most part, up until this summer, had, you know, he's a Kentucky boy.
Yep.
He's climbed a ton in the red.
Yep.
He's done a bunch of hard stuff in the red, and he knows that place inside and out, and he knows the characters there, and he knows and respects and understands that place.
Yeah.
And that is so cool. But you know, he had done multiple trips to Spain,
Right.
which for me back in the day was like, you know, I didn't go climbing. The first climbing trip I took to Europe was in 2012. And at that point I had already climbed like everywhere in the West and gone to the red a bunch of times, to the new, you know, just done as much as I can here because quite frankly, I didn't have the resources available to go to Europe. It was
Sure.
just too expensive. And I also was just making a decision because I could either be in my truck on the road for 4 or 5 months and then go back to working, or I could go to Europe for a month and then go back to working. And for me, I just wanted to see it all. And it was better to have that 5 months and to, you know, kind of like all those guidebooks and all the old climbing magazines and stuff that I had like drooled over and had just built so much respect for all these characters, I wanted to go to these places.
Right.
And so I recognized that Drew didn't necessarily have that same, because his role models were going to Oleana and were going to, and it was almost like the climbing history that he knew was the more modern history. And I think that drove him to want to go to those places like Oleana, like Santolina, whatever. And so I tried to, it's pretty difficult to force someone to appreciate history or to force someone to, go through the same thing you went through. And quite frankly, I think it's naive to think that he should or any other climber should have the same experience as me. But I just wanted to, I kept pressuring him like, dude, save your money, come to the West, buy a weird van or whatever it is, sleep in the dirt, and like, you do this thing and camp and meet people. And like, you're going to Spain and that's so sick. But like when you're at the crag, when you're in Oleana and these Spanish climbers and you're telling them that you're from the US and whatever, and the Spanish climbers are like, oh, rifle, and like, oh, Smith Rock and stuff. And you can't communicate with them at all about your home terrain and about what that means to you and what that might mean to them as a traveling climber. I think that it's worth it for him for many reasons, aside from just that, it was worth it for him to have a trip where he came to the West, and I want him to do many more, and I hope he does.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think what you've instilled in him, whether it was, via doing it directly, which doesn't sound like it was, you were just slipping the history into there and this appreciation for it, it's working.
Yeah.
Because when he came into the gym where we've got pieces of Todd Skinner's old wall and a lot of his old holds and some of the very first holds that Tony Aniro ever poured, and we've got all these old holds in my little home wall here, and I could see Drew's face light up when I told him that that's where those holds came from, So he does appreciate that history, and I think that's largely because of people like you taking an interest in him and you having that appreciation.
Well, that's great to hear, man, because part of me admittedly wants people like Drew to have not the same, but an echo of the experience that you and I and others had.
Yeah.
Because I learned so much from it, and et cetera, et cetera. But honestly, another part of me thinks that the future of the climbing community in the United States could, just in general, is like, there's just so much information there that I think is so important to kind of carry on. And I think as far as having like an honest and humble kind of future generation and future community of climbers, I think that trips like this and experiences like this and stuff are just really important. And it's hard to really articulate exactly why, although I'm sure with more time I could eventually find it. But regardless, I'm psyched to hear that he was there and that he had some level of appreciation for that. And what I tried to do when I built that list was, I wanted to include really classic areas, right? Like, that's why I have and there might not be, and I mean, the kids freaking climbed Fisheye and Oleana. Like, a lot of the stuff's going to be lower quality, quote unquote, than what he's already done.
Sure.
But still, like, going to AF and going to climb at Hell in AF, and like seeing some of those early routes from Boone Speed and those dudes. And then obviously, like, Smith Rock is an absolute, like, must do for any aspiring North American sport climber, just because of how much of the roots of sport climbing in North America are rooted there, or came from there. Right. And then, a few like slightly more modern things like Golden in Southwest Utah from Todd Perkins, like something a little more like modern and kind of like fresh, but at the same time, that route's 15 years old or something like that. So,
right.
And then, obviously, you know, it was really important for me to have him go to the Iris to climb on, you know, some of Todd Skinner's routes and just to experience that place. And, you know, I think more than anything, I tried to think about all the variety of different areas that he would meet different people and experience really different climbing styles that would help him cut his teeth as more than just, you know, another thing I was trying to think about too is he's like a fantastic endurance climber. Obviously, he's like born and raised in the red, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's a different thing to come and do Rodeo Free Europe.
Right.
Just like it's a different thing to do Dead Souls. And it's certainly a vastly different thing to come and do something like Closing Down, which I still think is like one of the hardest. That's probably the hardest route on that whole list. That thing, you know, Chris Sharma test piece from freaking ages ago that is like to this day, like quote unquote 14A. It's got to be one of the hardest 14As in the world.
Right. Right.
So, you know, whether or not he would send all these things, I was just like, dude, just these are the routes to try, you know? And I'm really psyched that he did Zulu. I think that's again, another Chris Sharma route, like an amazing step forward at the time and a great test piece even to this day. And then stuff like Living in Fear and Living the Dream. That's awesome that he got on those things as well and did those things. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I was going for, and it's cool that it seems to be working out.
Yeah, he's stoked on it, and you know, the whole podcast we did was essentially about this list and about him becoming a better climber and what that means. And he's going to write up a list of several different grade levels of 10 routes in the red that you would use if you're a Red River local to become a better climber. And I looked at his lists, and they very much mirror yours in the historical aspect, the different angles, different types of climbing. So it's very much geared toward developing, you know, and it sounds to me like this list played a big part in your development as a climber. And I think you would probably agree with that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, for me, you know, I think that the list would be a little different. Like I didn't start climbing in rifle until I knew I wanted to do kryptonite. But like there's other places, like, I mean, one of the first 14As I did was, Not Coming Home Curly, Busload of Faith at Sinks Canyon. And so, you know, my list for my own progression would probably be a bit different, but, you know, the theme is very much the same.
Yeah.
And a list like this can be made at 5'11", it can be made at 5'12", it can be made at 5'14", you know, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Drew did for the Red River routes. I won't keep you too long on here, but just a couple other quick questions. You mentioned that there was this like humbling that had to happen in our progression as we were coming up, because there just weren't the level of routes that there is now to choose from, and to, you know, you kind of had to go out and get beat up a little bit. Was there some intentional sandbagging going on here with things like the bleeding or closing down? Some good-natured sandbagging.
Sure. For sure. Good-natured sandbagging that, you know, I mean, I am a full believer that like, you know, having your heart broken a little bit and having your ego smashed is valuable.
Yeah. Totally.
And, you know, I also just wanted to try and nudge Drew to do something different, you know, than what he'd already done.
Yep.
And that's really hard for all of us. It doesn't matter if you're a 12A climber or a 15B climber or whatever.
Right.
Like to do something that's not what, you know, and that's what I was getting at before. Yeah. And that's what I was getting at before. Just like all those experiences I had back in the day, you know, it wasn't the same. Like I remember showing up to Wild Iris and I knew that it was like short and bouldery, but like, you know, you don't really know. There weren't like 10 videos online about what to expect. And I remember first coming up to the rodeo and being like, oh my God, like I can stick clip the chains, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess I just felt like there were a lot of experiences for me that were very formative, where it wasn't like I didn't have the option to back out, but it was kind of like I got thrown into deep waters. And whether that was like my first like multi-pitch experience or my first trad climbing experience or my first experience trying to level up my grade situation or whatever it was, and those were cool because it just like garners a certain type of respect, really palpable respect that you can't get if you just stick to what you know all the time.
JStar is a smart dude, and he puts a lot of thought into this beyond the just getting stronger for climbing. There are a lot of parts that go into it. And we'll be hearing more from him again later. But first, let's get back to Drew and Nate and Johnny.
Drew, what do you think JStar was intending with the living in fear, living the dream link up, like putting the two of those on there with all of rifle, just having Zulu and those two routes where you're climbing kind of the same route twice with just a different finish?
Yeah, maybe that was rushed. No, I think they both offer something a little bit different. I think it you want to do the proud original line. Of course, you want to do living the fear.
And you did them both on this trip, right?
Yeah, which is a funny story also. I climbed living in fear first.
And that's the original.
The original 13D, and I climbed that in like 4 tries. And then, I started up trying the dream section, and that one actually ended up taking me more tries to get to living the dream than it did to do living in fear originally. So I then was falling on
the living in fear part.
On the living in fear part more times than it took me to actually do the route the first time. So then I was like cursing at JStar, saying like, I wish I would have just gone right the first time, kind of thing.
Right.
Because to me, the endurance bit of the living the dream is very much my style, I guess. So it was more a matter of like learning the moves, and then I felt pretty confident I was going to do it if I got to the dream. But then I couldn't get it to. I couldn't get back over there, and that's also part of that whole like being, tired and being mentally fatigued. I think that was obviously you guys all kind of were taken back by that a little bit. If you can do the route, you should be able to do it again relatively quickly.
Well, I think it's an interesting part of it, and I wonder how much of that JStar might have anticipated, because there's so much expectation that it's just going to go down easy after you've done the original.
Yeah. Well, living in fear is also like, it gets 13D, but it's
notoriously difficult at one move, right? Like
word.
A lot of people fall in one spot.
Well, I wouldn't even say one spot. I'd say it's more like there's nowhere to hide. You climb 40 feet to like absolute terrible rest.
Mm-hmm. Is this the route with like the 5.9 dyno or 5.10 dyno or whatever?
It's laughable.
It's a hard move, but like it's you're not dynoing.
Right.
You're just,
right.
Yeah.
You can, if you're fresh, you can pretty much just lock the move off.
Yeah.
I think it was more of
you're just never fresh.
Actually, Lee and Bill Sheftel, I ran into them one day, which are absolute OGs.
And Bill Ramsey.
Yeah. Legends. And they were, I think, explaining
those
to
two
me,
are as OG as it gets. Like
100%.
They were around when rifle was created.
100%. And they were telling me that was like kind of this like joke thing that somebody had said back in the day, calling it 5.9. I don't know.
Right.
We're gonna have to.
Yeah, it's just what the moves become known as.
Yeah. So basically, you like climb to that bad rest, and you pretend to shake out there, which is you're like, you put chalk on your hands, but you're not really able to calm down much. And then you do another, 30 feet of like very continuous rock climbing. And that's kind of what I mean also. Like that's maybe the most power endurance route I've ever climbed, where you like are climbing 60 feet, like, and you get to chalk up like a couple times.
I think it's
right?
I think it's 26 moves to the bevel, which is like the slope arrest, and it's
Yeah.
25 moves from there to the anchors.
Yeah.
Like something like that. So it's
Yeah.
literally just split in half by this heinous,
Or
like,
rest.
yeah, it's just like chalk your hands and run.
That's a good
Yeah.
name for the rest, the bevel.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of rests like that in rifle.
Yeah. My buddy Nat really wants to do, living in beer, which I think is a rad challenge that I want to put into the universe, which is like you climb the route and at some point you drink a beer.
Well, on route.
On
Yeah,
the
which
bevel.
is like, I mean, he just thought of it because the name was cool. He didn't really actually know anything about the route, like that you don't get he assumed there was some knee bar because it's rifle. Yet it's the like one route in rifle with like, you're not wearing knee pads and no knee bars. But actually, I'm going to remove that comment.
You did wear a knee pad.
No, I'm going to remove the comment of the whole living in beer thing because I don't want to tell somebody to drink a beer on a route.
Well, you don't have a choice to remove it because
Whoops.
I'm the one who edits this podcast.
Yeah, no, that's in there.
So,
Somebody go do it. Just don't tell everybody I told you to do it.
so you're 3 routes down now. 3
Yeah.
routes off the list.
Yeah. I've done a couple. I got a long way to go.
You do. Are you going to check out Rodeo Free while you're here, or are you bailing out before that?
To be honest, I don't think I'm going to have the chance to climb on that one very much.
Quick trip.
Yeah, quick trip. I'm only here like another day or two. And those monos look pretty thin.
Yeah.
So,
You have to get your fingers ready for that.
Yeah.
I'm glad he put that one on here, actually, because I think it's kind of an old school style.
yeah.
When I came up in the gyms, monos were everywhere.
Yeah.
We had, at climb time in Cincinnati, there were probably 20 monos on the wall at any given time.
Yeah.
But now you'd be really hard pressed to
I
find a
am
mono
not.
in a gym where the public could access it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't touched a mono, much less a 2-finger in a while. Try to avoid those kind of.
So what's the ultimate goal? And this is a Lee Smith question. Lee wanted to know this. So
Yeah.
And I mean, this episode is really just for Lee anyway, because he's going to be the most excited person on the planet to hear this episode.
He'll
He
be
probably is right now.
Yeah, he is.
real
But
excited.
He wants to know what the ultimate goal
He knows
is.
every single thing about me. Yeah, he'll be so psyched to listen to this, which I think is hilarious. It's so funny. So yeah, he asked. So big goal, like
Big goal.
the big goal for my whole climbing.
Let's talk a few goals. Let's talk the big ultimate goal. Do you have a huge ultimate, like, specific goal?
I mean, generally, I would say to continue getting better. Now, if we're gonna make that
I'm
more
looking for specifics.
more
here, too.
specifically, I want to climb 515. I think I will climb 515. I'm like really committed to doing that. And even harder if I can. I think that's kind of this number that I put in my head, but I want to keep doing everything too. I want to travel all over the world and climb like amazing routes and new routes, and I would love in the future to develop routes. Climbing 515 is definitely like
That's the big goal.
15A. Of course, there's like so many amazing amazing ones all over the world.
Johnny Lightning, you want to put a date on this?
I would also love to bring it to the red.
If it doesn't happen by
Cool.
2020, I'll eat my Croc.
Didn't you throw your Crocs away?
I threw my Crocs away. Actually, I have a new pair, but they shrunk a little bit, and I can't really wear them. I wear them like to the shower, but my heels won't go in them.
Okay, well, don't get rid of those Crocs because I'm gonna.
Crocs.
In 2020, if Drew doesn't climb 515, I'm holding you to this.
I threw away the hardest climbing Crocs in the world.
I don't know. We just established that you don't quite yet climb moderates.
I don't
So-
climb moderates yet, but find me another person who climbs moderates and Crocs, and I'll eat the other Croc.
Nate, what do you think? Time.
I thought we were still on the Croc issue.
Have
No.
you guys seen the photo of a crocodile eating a croc? It's really funny.
It's very meta.
Yeah, it's quite.
I haven't seen
Anyway,
it.
Google
Um,
that for sure.
Well, I don't know.
That's going to be the cover image of this podcast.
Crocs on Crocs. I don't know.
Are you betting against Drew on the 515?
No.
Is that what's happening here?
I'm not. I think like access to it's going to be the toughest thing. I mean, because you just kind of said it, like you want to bring it to the red. It's like, it's one thing to be able to have something in your backyard that you can work on, but if you don't have easy access to hard climbing, it definitely makes it harder. So I don't know.
We don't have that on the East Coast right now.
Yeah.
Or
Have you thought about that? Like what 515s you might want to go check out when the time comes?
yeah, of course. I mean, I've climbed on Papichuelo at Oleana, which is which is something that like in my mind, like it breaks down well to me and for my style of climbing, and that's something like I've watched a lot of climbers on, and thought a lot about. Joe and John have done Bone Tomahawk.
Yep.
If I'm gonna do one in the States, like that's probably it. Roof climbing, like Jonathan calls it like no bad holds.
Right.
Bicep pump.
Has he ever encountered a bad hold in his life?
That's true.
That fair point.
I've bouldered with that guy.
I've seen him climb on slightly overhanging rock that it didn't look like he hit any bad holds. And,
No.
Yeah.
And I beg to differ on those holds.
That's fair. So I don't actually know what Bone Tomahawk looks like. It could be all half pad crimps and a roof, which would not be the most fun. Quarter pad edges and a roof. Now that one would be really amazing to go try. And I've thought about doing a little session out there to just go climb. There's a route nearby, Golden, which is on the list.
Yep.
And do that one, and then look at what I need to do to climb Bone. I don't expect to like go out there and climb well on it. Expect to go get my butt kicked, but at least that'll help me like know how to train better for it.
Yeah, and it'll help you avoid the rest of your list as well. I mean, Jonathan's over here. All right, here's a list of great classic technical routes. Sounds good. Where's that steep juggy thing you were talking about?
Sorry, JStar.
I have one question. This list, I think it's the list or climbing 515A.
The list for climbing.
I know. I think it's like I think it's one or the other. I think that like
you
if
gotta choose.
I think you have to choose between being well rounded or being like the super cool guy.
I disagree. I'm going to do both.
Johnny's belief in you is wavering here, Drew.
Well, I mean, I will prove you wrong.
All right, you heard it here, Johnny. We're gonna try really hard to make Johnny eat his Crocs come 2020, and I don't know what's gonna replace Instagram Live or Instagram TV by then, but you'll see it there.
Yeah,
We promise.
I don't see this list also as being something that like I need to do like immediately before doing other things.
Yeah, so you're not like dedicated to just checking off everything on the list.
I'm not gonna go straight to like these routes. I'm gonna like. I thought about trying to do something like that where I was just like, I'm gonna go try to do all of them in a shorter period of time. But
You could
to be
get
honest,
sponsors for that trip.
create a video.
You could do it.
JStar's 11. No, I think it's more like, when I have the opportunity to go to these places, or to make the opportunities also to go to these places and do these routes. But, I also want to, if I can climb, I would like to climb harder routes as well. And I think there's a time and place for both. This rifle trip, I chose to do a lot of routes instead of hard ones, like we talked about earlier, and that's kind of how I see this list as well.
Yeah, and you ticked off the 3 pretty quickly.
3 in rifle, yeah, I was really psyched about that.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm excited to see how the other ones challenge you, though.
I feel like the rifle
Some
ones
of them
fit
are
me
pretty
really
different.
well.
Yeah. I think those were his gimmies for you on here.
Zulu fits me kind of well.
We'll see how the other ones go. When you go to Cathedral to do Golden, do you think you'll get distracted by all of the variations on Golden, or will you do Golden and move on to other routes?
I don't know. It's always hard to say because there's a lot of different parts of that. There's solid gold and solid gold direct and golden direct. I don't even know them all.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Shout out Stan Mursky, legend out there. But yeah, no, I think for me it'd be go to do Golden is at the top of the list, and then look at some harder ones.
Yep. I always wonder
And
that
it's-
myself, actually, because
Yeah.
I don't like to do the direct and its link up or
Yeah.
whatever all
It
at
can
the same
become
time.
quite frustrating.
But I should do it that way. It seems like that would be the more
Yeah.
efficient way to do it.
What was funny is I did
Until
like
I hear your story in
I
rifle.
did Waka Flocka at the very beginning of my trip in rifle, and then I did Living in Fear and Living the Dream. And so all I had to do Waka Flocka Flame, which would be 14C, would be to just do the link up,
Connect them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, which adds 2 moves into these routes that I already done, and I considered doing it, but there are so many other routes I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
You didn't go straight for the 14C?
nah,
Was it because you got so frustrated by living the dream?
no, it was because I wanted to do more rock. I hadn't touched Zulu yet. I
Yeah.
hadn't done any of these other things, and I also really kind of had this goal in mind of doing 10 routes 8B or harder in rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't once I had done 5 or 6, I was like, okay, I'll just I want to make sure I do that kind of thing
Yeah.
too.
Did you do the 10?
I did 10.
Nice, dude.
Yeah, I was psyched.
Oh, that's a good trip.
Yeah,
Johnny, you might be eating a crock in 2020.
yeah, which was
No,
really cool
I-
actually.
I'm not going to eat a crock. He's going to send 515 that I don't have to. I only have to eat the crock if he doesn't send.
In
that how it was?
Yeah.
I thought you had to eat it if he does send.
No, if he doesn't send, I'm not going to eat a crock. Drew's going to send.
He
and
was
I'm not gonna
betting.
eat
He
it.
was betting for me. Why are you trying to switch this? You're trying to make us.
I thought he was betting against
But I think
you.
the
That's the way I
list
took it.
could get in the way. If Drew starts climbing an American fork, that's it for him. He's not going to want to go anywhere else. He's going to get so hooked on American fork. I mean, have you seen the pictures of that place? Get real. He's going to get suckered into that lifestyle.
You just pissed somebody off for sure.
He's going to be drinking
Yeah.
2% beers and just crushing American fork.
Some people love to climb the road cuts, Johnny. You just
Come at
gotta-
me. If you love American fork, come to Lander. You know
Lightning
where I
slabs.
stay. Come on.
They're gonna blow up the @lightning snaps on Instagram now.
yeah.
Yeah. Slide into my DMs. Let me know how you feel.
As he takes a drink of day-old cold coffee. Would you be willing, I'm just out of curiosity here, let's say, and I'm going to put this out there because I know people are going to email you now, and I like the idea of you getting just bum rushed by emails.
Great.
If a 512 climber wanted to break into 513 and they
Yeah.
wanted a list of Red River 512s
100%.
Oh,
to
dang.
get to 513,
I already do that. I mean, not yeah. I mean, I do that on a small level. I'm sure your stamp of that would make it bigger. But yeah, I think that I've climbed in the red long enough that people already reach out about routes to do, and I absolutely love that.
yeah. What if
Yeah.
we make a couple of
Holler.
those? A 512 list and a 513 list to
Yeah.
make you a complete climber.
Yeah,
Make a
If you're a
514
Red
list
River
too. Maybe I
climber.
can get there.
As complete as you can get in the red anyway.
yeah. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we'll put those on the blog, the Drew Mack.
Yeah.
Drew Mack 10.
The must dos
Yeah.
for being a better rock climber. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Lee also wanted to know what you think the obstacles are to get into this 515 that now has to happen by 2020.
But before we go there, I wanted to get JStar's thoughts on some of the obstacles that he saw Drew facing.
Last quick question. What do you think is going to be Drew's biggest challenge with this list or with just developing into the kind of climber that you foresee him having the ability to become?
Oh man. I think probably the hardest part for him in particular is going to be embracing some of the styles and some of the areas that are quote unquote not cool.
Yeah.
Because he's an impressionable young lad, and it's easy for him to go to Maple or to Rifle because they're still very much cool and people are there and whatever.
Mhm.
Going to Mount Charleston, climbing in the Thompson Cave, that's a little different. He's going to be there alone, and that route's going to be a bastard for him, and stuff like that, where it's going to be at that point, and I only want this I'm only trying to show him the door. He needs to walk through it, or he needs to make his own entrance or find his own door or whatever, whatever the metaphor, however that goes.
Yep.
But and if he could easily get to some of these cliffs like hell or whatever and be like, this place sucks, why do I even want to climb here? but at least he went, and at least he knows now when people say like, oh dude, ice cream and like, hell or high water and all this other stuff, and at least he knows what that is, and at least he has some context and some perspective. And then outside of that, it's going to be up to him whether or not he wants to embrace it and settle into something like White Wedding, where there's not like on the bro circuit.
Right.
There's not exactly a lineup of like dudes and chicks, like strong mo's trying to do that thing.
Yeah,
so
it's not on the Instagram every other week for sure.
It is not. I have not seen White Wedding on Instagram for a minute. So yeah.
Well, cool. I appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me, but even more than that, I appreciate you taking an interest in this next generation and being the role model that you are. I think that's sometimes very sorely needed in this community, and you're definitely one of the first that I point people towards, so I appreciate that.
Well, thanks, man. That means a lot, and to be totally honest, I mean, in large part, that's for me, that's really, really important at this point in my climbing. So to hear that's awesome, man. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for the time as well. And I'm really looking forward to the podcast now. It'd be cool to hear Drew's thoughts and to see the thing come full circle. So
yeah, cool. Well, it'll be out soon. Thanks, man.
Great.
I'll let you get back to your day. Have fun at the Next Move Academy thing tomorrow, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.
Brad, dude, sounds awesome. Thanks, dude.
Cool.
Talk
Thanks,
to you
man.
soon.
Bye.
All right. Yeah.
Big thanks to JStar for taking some time out of his day to just be the stand-up dude that he is. I always appreciate his insights, and it's really cool to hear his thoughts on this matter after having had the conversation with Drew. So, all right, let's get back to Lee Smith's question about what does Drew think are going to be the biggest challenges to this ultimate goal of 515?
Yeah, you asked me to order those too.
Yeah, let's talk about the top 3 obstacles.
We'll talk about the first 2. Yeah, so I think, obviously, if I get injured, that's something that's will slow me down significantly. Any climber doesn't want to get hurt, so I try to be quite cautious. I try to be careful, and also be proactive about the things I'm doing, be better about shoulder strength and the antagonist kinds of things, which I
Are you just saying this? Or do
I
you actually do it?
totally neglect all of these
Okay,
things.
you neglect it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I figured.
100%.
Double checking here.
Yeah, have you? I
Just making sure.
my shoulders
Big
are
surprise.
Super hunched.
He eats cereal out of his chest bowl.
Wow.
Ew.
That'd be hot.
No, I want to be. I think I'm careful enough about being injured. Although I've had a lot of injuries, I guess that slows you down significantly.
Yeah.
The other thing, I guess, would be financially. Like Nate was saying, if I can't travel to where these routes are, it makes it a little bit harder to do harder ones. In Oleana, there's more 515s in Oleana in 100 feet than there are in all of America.
Right.
So that opens up the door as well to finding one that fits you well.
Yep. So
Finding
we should
one
be
that
on the
works.
lookout for the Drew Mack Kickstarter.
515
by 2020
Trying to marry
Kickstarter.
a Spanish girl is what I'm saying.
Which brings us to obstacle number 3.
Life. We'll go with life. Responsibilities
All right.
and obligations.
That was a good, mature, responsible answer, Drew.
Yeah, of
I
course.
like it.
I'm young, but things are. everybody has things that come up in their life.
Yeah, totally.
And how they handle them and what that means for them. At some point, I want to not live in my Subaru and wake up claustrophobic. But right now it allows me to go rock climbing a whole lot. But if things change, I want to buy my mama a car.
Oh man, that's amazing. What do you think are the top 3 things that have gotten you to this point where you're at? Because we talked about this in the first time I had you on the podcast. I remember when you were just so stoked out of your mind to climb 512. So
yeah, 100%.
What got you to this point?
The 3 things that got me to this point. Number 1 is my community. 100%. I wouldn't be here without. It's cheesy, but the people who have supported me all of my climbing.
I don't think that's cheesy at all.
On a small scale and on a huge scale. I'm not scared. I've received support financially from people that I didn't ask for. I didn't ask for handouts or things like that, but people really try to find their way to help me reach my goals. And
I've seen a lot of people take a really direct interest in you, which I think is really cool.
It's crazy. I don't believe it. I'm incredibly grateful for everybody. Johnny from Johnny helped me get here. What's that?
From day 6.
From day 6. Day 6 friend. I ain't gonna call you an A1.
No, A6.
But Johnny,
8th grade.
Johnny and I hustled on the social media side. He's an incredible photographer, and we helped grow each other's brands with that.
At Lightning Snaps.
At Lightning,
More
incredible. And that was something that was huge for, me spraying more. No, my community for sure. You invested in me, Chris. Nate has, everybody has. Lee, my family, everybody.
Yeah, Lee
sponsors.
for sure. Is Lee day 1 homie? Lee was there from day 1.
Yeah,
right?
Lee took me outside climbing for the first time.
Day 0.
Yeah.
Day 0 homie. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for Lee to adopt me. Lee, I'm out there, man.
Yeah,
You got my back.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so crazy. Number 2, the second thing that's got me where I am, I would say my psych, and 3 would be my work ethic, I'd say.
So Johnny thinks it's the other way around. He thinks it's work ethic first.
No, I'm lazy, man.
No way.
I mean, and I would change out even the word psych for a incredibly genuine love, beyond just being excited about going rock climbing. I absolutely love all parts of it. Not even just the day, going to the Kraken, the physical thing of climbing, but just the whole thing of it is pretty special.
Yeah.
And that's why I know I'm gonna do this for a long time. I don't know. Those seem to be the 3 things that have gotten me where I'm at.
I think those are really good answers.
Yeah. Also starting young as a kid has gotten me I think that attributes to my success as a rock climber. I can't neglect that, I think.
Why'd you say that when you were just looking at me? Because I'm old and can't rock climb?
No.
No, you're
I'm saying
you're nailing the moderates.
I started
Killing that moderate game.
I started young, which anything you do that you start earlier, you're probably more. I don't want to say you're more. I don't know what I'm saying.
You don't have to explain yourself, Drew.
Okay, I'm not saying the wrong thing though.
No,
I bet
not at all.
if you had started when you were
gymnasts start super young.
If you had started when you were 18, I don't think you'd be too far behind where you are right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I agree. And I've definitely dealt with the balance of business and climbing, which everyone at this table has,
of course,
to some degree. And it's cool for me to see you in this position. You've just you've emailed JStar and all sorts of other people, you've emailed me over the years to look over sponsorship proposals
100%.
or letters or whatever it is that you're writing. And so I know what your desire to be a good professional climber, and I don't mean that as good climber. I mean good professional, which I think is just as important as being a good climber.
100%.
I know what that desire is like. So it's cool to see you here at the festival doing things for Petzl and, coming right off the tail end of a trip where you did 10 APs or harder.
Yeah.
I think the way that you're balancing those two things out is really, really fun for me to see.
Thank you.
And makes me feel like I didn't waste that Illmatic ticket on you.
Hey. Well, for those of you who don't know, Chris, for my 20th birthday, bought me a ticket to go
God,
see
was that your 20th birthday?
Nas in concert. Jesus. Yeah, it might have been younger, actually. But I feel like it was 20.
Might have been.
Maybe it was 18, actually.
How old are you now?
I have no clue.
How old are you now?
Because it doesn't seem like I'm 23.
Oh, it must have been 20 then. Must have been.
Yeah.
The Instagram knows. We'll just look there.
We'll look it up. But it bought me a ticket, and we drove to Detroit, watched the show, and then drove to Kentucky to do Rocktoberfest.
Yeah.
Which was heavy, but amazing. And that's like, I love doing events like Rocktoberfest, and, this is my first time to Lander. But like to be able to come here and have an effect on like to people. I've never been here, and people wanted to like go do a clinic with me, and like I feel incredibly grateful for that. Yeah, for sure. Like I love these events. I love to be a part of things. I want a more inclusive community. Like, I want everybody to have, if they're interested in like trying rock climbing or doing like that, like I want them to experience like the love that I have.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any thoughts from you two before we wrap this thing up?
Yes. So Jonathan gave you a list.
Yeah.
Would you like to give a list to Jonathan right now?
Oh man.
Oh dang.
Because I like flood his Instagram all the time, telling him to come to Waco.
Yeah.
Because he's like weak as a kitten. We had this talk. I climbed with him in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you got to come to Waco. He's like, I know. And I was like, what do you want to climb on? He was just like, okay. And he listed out like the 5 only like true crimp ladders there. I was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
Now.
So let me think for 1 second. You put me on the spot here.
Are there some Rocklands boulders JStar should go do?
JStar, you got to go do Sky. You got to do the Big Island,
Oh God.
which is a V15 in font. You guys know that one, I'm sure. The big slappy compression.
Can he span that?
No.
I hope so. Double dyno or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want Jonathan to come to Kentucky. Come do 10 routes in Kentucky first ascents. No, don't do that. Never mind. Don't come because I want to do them. I don't know. I would love to like go on more trips with Jonathan, and that's probably where my trips. That would be the list I would give him. Is like
Your itinerary.
yeah, exactly.
Take the holds for me. Hang the draws.
Routes with some next to him for me too.
No, I think that's an interesting point though. Like Jonathan's style is very much old school style of climbing, and that's the list that he gave Drew, which is exactly what Drew needs. But what does Jonathan need? I think.
Well, it's also like Jonathan belayed me on like fisheye, in Spain. I went to Spain and climbed like the most. That's something like
the most
I've
Drew Mack
talked
style
about.
route.
Very much my style and very much like everybody's style. It's like the Vogue route to do, which I mentioned earlier. It's like things that like everybody knows of and heard of, and like it loses its I guess specialness when it's like been, the most done whatever in the world kind of thing. But like that thing that everybody does is also like something that I want to go do.
Well, it's done for that often for a reason.
Exactly.
It's good.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I also part of the like what Jonathan says, like go do these that like maybe people neglect or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that's partly a style thing as well. Like Fisheye's done so much because it's a style that's easy to learn in the gym and easy to obtain. Something like Rodeo Free or White Wedding, those aren't nearly as easy to obtain in the gym, or F-Dude, those kinds of things are harder to learn.
Yeah. I couldn't honestly come up with 11 routes like that Jonathan hasn't done. Maybe some moonboard boulders.
Waco tanks, Waco tanks, Waco tanks, Waco tanks.
Well, he's going to go there now, and you're going to be like, whoa.
Well, maybe
I want him to.
Maybe I'll try and get him on here and see what his list for himself would look like.
Yeah.
if I tell him it can't be crimp ladders.
Oh,
Not that JStar only climbs crimp ladders. We all know he's
he's
really, really good rock climber.
yeah, he's a great all-around climber. He's just an animal at crimps.
Yeah, totally. So
So really, you can't come up with one.
One route for him to go do.
Just one. You can even
He hasn't done
sandbag him.
Sheila and Bielam, but he'll do that in a couple tries, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He should go do Ladura Dura. He should go do he hasn't done 9B plus 15C. You know, like I think obviously he's more than capable of doing the next grade. He's done multiple 9Bs. He's done an insane amount of 9A pluses. JStar, go do Dura. If you've made it this far in the podcast, bro.
Johnny, any last thoughts from you?
I just really
We're
hope
gonna
I
make
don't-
you eat your crock.
I hope I don't have to eat the crock.
He's gonna marinate it tonight.
I'm gonna start marinating
Why'd
it
you
now.
say 2020, bro? You got to buy me a plane ticket to Spain for the next 3 springs,
I just think 2020 is a reasonable time
2 springs.
to jump a couple.
Can we
Does this include 2020?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah, let's put an actual date on this. By
December
date?
31.
by December 31, 2020. So when the new year rolls around, Drew Mack he'll get a tattoo that says "I climb 515A" on his chest.
That is not going to happen.
That's what's gonna happen, y'all.
Yeah. And you will also not eat the crock because I'm going to do it.
He's gonna do it. I don't think I'm gonna eat the crock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hope you don't have
I
to eat
know.
the crock, but we'll see.
Self-actualize this, I guess, and just tell myself I'm going to do it for you.
I think that he's gonna do it. Drew has grit and tenacity.
You can't climb
I
for
don't
other
even
people,
care about
Drew.
doing it anymore. It's more like I want to do it so Johnny doesn't, eat a crock and potentially die.
I think you just wait until January 1, 2021 to do it so that Johnny does have to eat the crock.
Word. That's a better idea.
Yeah.
Double win.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I kind of think it'd be fine to eat the crock. I don't think your body could digest it, and it would just like pass through and it'd be straight. I don't think it'd be such a big deal.
Okay.
If you cut it into small enough pieces, I don't know.
You look like you're seriously considering this.
I mean,
right now.
I did say it, so I'm seriously considering it. I mean, it would be very foul, but I think if I clean the crock, it would be mostly tasteless, and you just swallow it like a pill, like a little bit at a time, and I don't know. I mean,
You don't have to go in this much detail because I'm going to do
he's
it.
gonna do it, but you better do it.
Chris, do you have any
All right.
final thoughts on
All right.
this?
No, I've given my final thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so
I'm
much,
just stoked
sir.
to see you where you're at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm psyched to see you where you're at as well. Like,
Dude, I'm not fucking rock climbing. so-
no, it doesn't matter. Like I said, like life gets in the way, and that doesn't mean it's a bad thing either.
Yeah.
You know,
right now
like,
it's definitely in the way, but it's moving the other direction. So
Yeah.
We'll see.
well, we're gonna go rock climb together
Someday.
2 days from now,
Waco 2019,
2018.
Hopefully with JStar.
2018, 2019. Everyone be there. Well, no one should show up at us, and then we won't have to get reservations.
Thanks for the closing remarks, Johnny. All
All right. Thank you guys.
right, peace.
Obviously, I've known Drew for a long time, and I love seeing his progression, but I also really enjoy knowing the struggles and getting to see behind the scenes. And I hope this episode lets you in on a little bit of that from this rising star. I think that Drew is the same type of great role model that JStar is, and seeing behind that curtain really should only serve to make him even more so. If you're a Red River climber or are planning a trip there, we've got Drew's 10 to do. Those lists are up on the site, powercompanyclimbing.com. You can see them there, or you can download the PDF checklist that we've created. We've got one for each grade, 510 through 513. So whether you're looking to break into 511 or 514 or anything between, and to really be solid at the grade, we've got you covered. The link is right there in your pocket supercomputer, in the show notes. Download it, print it, stick it in your guidebook, check it off, whatever. And, if you see Drew out at the crag, maybe have him sign it. Okay, thanks again to JStar for phoning in. I really appreciate that. Thanks to Nate and Johnny for sitting down with us. You can find Nate on Instagram at CruxPadwell You can find Johnny there at Lightning Snaps. And you can find Drew at DrewMack5. That's DRUMACK5, the number. He's closing in on 10,000 followers. Let's get him over the hump. You can find that link in your Pocket Supercomputer show notes as well. You know where you can find us, powercompanyclimbing.com. You can find us on the Instagram, the Facebook, and the Pinterest at Power Company Climbing. And search for us on the Twitter. Search there all day. I really don't care as long as you're listening to the podcast in the meantime. But you're not going to find us because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time, 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 this time,